6 SUV brands are coming apart in the American market right now, and the one sitting at number 1 just posted the best quarter in its entire history. That is not a typo, and it is not a trick. It is the whole reason I wanted to walk through this, because the way we usually judge whether a car company is healthy, the sales chart, the press release, the shiny new model at the auto show, is close to useless. A brand can be growing on paper and dying where you actually live, which is at the dealership, in the service bay, and on the trade-in line of a purchase order. Here is the number that started me down this road. According to IC Cars, which went through more than 950,000 5-year-old used cars sold between March of 2025 and February of 2026, the full-size Infiniti QX80 sits at the very top of the biggest loser list, dropping an average of 62.8% of its value in 5 years. About $52,631 gone. $52,000. That is not a car depreciating. That is a market quietly announcing that it does not believe in the brand anymore. I've had the front end off more of these crossovers than I want to admit, and I've spent enough time around trade appraisals and auction sheets to know that resale value is the honest vital sign. Marketing lies. Quarterly reports get spun. Residuals do not, because they are just thousands of strangers voting with their own money on whether this thing will still be worth owning in 5 years. So what I want to do here is count down 6 SUV brands in real trouble in 2026, using the numbers that actually matter instead of the ones in the ads. By the end, you'll be able to look at any brand on a bad run and tell the difference between a rough patch and a slow collapse. And you'll know exactly how to price the discount they're waving at you. Somewhere in the middle of this, I'm going to read you a single sentence buried in one company's warranty paperwork. It is about 11 words long, nobody reads it, and it quietly caps what your SUV is worth the day you decide to sell it. When we get there, you'll know it because it'll make you a little angry. Let's start with how a car brand actually dies, because it is almost never the way people think. Nobody's SUVs get so bad that buyers riot. What happens is slower and much more boring. First, the product ages because the money goes somewhere else. Then the factory starts pushing volume into rental and commercial fleets to keep the plants busy. Those fleet cars come back off lease and rental duty 2 and 3 years later in a big lump, and they land in the used market underneath the new ones. Residual values sag. Now the lease payment on a new one looks bad compared to a rival, so the factory has to buy the deal down with cash. That cash comes out of the same pot that was supposed to fund the next generation. Meanwhile, the dealer is watching his own numbers, and if he's selling 15 new cars a month while his other store sells 150, he starts asking his accountant an uncomfortable question. That's the loop. Product, fleet, residuals, incentives, dealers. Once it's turning, it feeds itself, and no press release stops it. So the honest tell isn't sales volume, it's 3 things. What percentage of the volume is retail, what the thing is worth in 5 years, and whether the people who signed franchise agreements are staying or leaving. Watch those and you can see it coming years out. That's the thread running through all 6 of these. Number 6, Mitsubishi. I want to be fair here because there's a lot of lazy dunking on this brand and some of it isn't earned. The current Outlander is a genuinely decent vehicle, the plug-in hybrid version is one of the better plug-in crossovers you can buy, and Mitsubishi's warranty on paper is one of the longest in the country. That's real. What's also real is the dealer body voting with its feet. Mitsubishi opened 2026 with 289 stores in the United States, down from 355 in early 2019. A loss of 56 locations in 7 years, and according to Automotive News reporting on the network, that's a bigger decline than any other mainstream brand except the far larger Ford and Chevrolet. The brand's own CEO put a number on the deliberate part, about 35 franchises terminated in 18 months, with roughly 297 stores averaging just 15 new car sales a month. 15. A healthy store does that before lunch on a Saturday. Then there's the part that should bother you as a buyer more than any of it. In the first quarter of this year, nearly 60% of the Mitsubishis sold went to fleet buyers. Think about what that does. 6 out of 10 new units are going into rental and commercial service, and they'll all come back to the retail used market at once, with high miles and a rental history, competing directly against the exact vehicle you paid retail for. Dealers told the trade press flatly that residuals are so soft that customers can get a barely used one for far less than a new one, which is a wonderful thing if you're shopping used and a brutal thing if you bought new. And the product situation is what it is. The lineup runs to Outlander, Outlander Sport, and Eclipse Cross, and the Outlander Sport sits on a platform that has been around roughly 15 years. 15 years is not a car. 15 years is an heirloom. There's an electric crossover coming and a more rugged Outlander after that, and dealers have heard the promises before. One of them told Automotive News, in the weary voice of a man who has sat through a lot of dealer meetings, that they keep being told it's going to get better. I'm not calling Mitsubishi dead. It has survived worse decades than this one. But 60% fleet is not a marketing strategy. It's a life support machine. Number 5. Buick. This one surprises people because Buick spent the last decade doing everything the consultants said. Killed the sedans, went all crossover, gave everything a soft focus name, and it was working for a while. Then first quarter deliveries fell 32.6% to 41,654 units. That is not a soft quarter. That is a brand losing a third of its business in 3 months. It recovered somewhat by the second quarter. GM's numbers put Buick down 7.5%, with Cadillac faring worse at 19.2%. But look at the model level story underneath, because it's the more interesting one. The Chinese-built Envision took a $3,000 price increase for 2026 as tariffs hit it, and dealers were sitting on more than 9,000 of them, roughly 6 months of supply. Sit with that for a second. 6 months of unsold inventory, and the answer was to raise the price $3,000. Now I want to be careful because I've seen nobody give a straight public explanation of that decision, and I'm not going to invent one. My read, and it is a read, not a fact, is that this is what it looks like when a vehicle is being managed toward the exit rather than sold. When the import math stops working, you don't discount your way through it, you raise the price, take the margin on whatever still moves, and let the volume die quietly. By the second quarter, Envision sales were down 32.58%, which is roughly what you'd expect from that plan. The rest of it is texture, and the texture is grim. The brand hasn't issued a proper press release in something like 2 years, marketing people have left, and GM walked back Buick's American electrification plans. Meanwhile, the Enclave was actually up more than 23%, which tells you the appetite for a good 3-row Buick still exists. Somebody up the chain just isn't feeding it. Number 4. Volvo. Short section because the story is short and I don't want to pad it. Volvo sold 22,651 vehicles in the United States in the first quarter of 2026, down 32%, with every single model declining. This from a company whose lineup is now almost entirely SUVs, the exact thing everybody said was the safe bet. Going nearly all SUV eroded the volume, and then the new generation software troubles dented confidence in the brand on top of it. And the flagship electric SUV has spent 2 years as the poster child for that. A minority of owners describing intermittent power loss, no starts, or reboot cycles that put the car back at the dealer for days, tied to the central computer, which Volvo started proactively replacing on earlier builds. When a company built entirely on the word safe ships a $90,000 SUV that reboots, that's not a sales problem. That's a foundation problem. Right, we're halfway down the list, and the last 3 are where it gets genuinely strange. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, subscribe. That's the whole ask, and it's free. Because number 3 is a brand whose dealers spent most of this year with only 2 vehicles to sell, and number 1 is a company setting records while its American business shrinks. Number 3. Infiniti. Remember that depreciation figure I opened with? The QX80 leading the entire industry in 5-year value destruction? That is not an accident of one model. That's the shape of the whole brand right now. Start with the showroom. Automotive News reported in January that Infiniti dealers had to get by until spring with only 2 models. 2. Not 2 body styles of a core product. 2 nameplates in a luxury market where every rival fields half a dozen utilities. At the top end of the market, nearly every luxury brand now runs 2 or more SUV nameplates at once, and Infiniti was trying to fight that with a pair. Then look at what the professionals think it's worth. Dealership brokers who value these businesses for a living put Infiniti stores in the $0 to $2 million blue sky range, which is the polite industry way of saying the franchise itself is worth close to nothing, and noted that Acura outsells Infiniti at roughly 2.7 to 1. When a franchise's goodwill value approaches 0, the people best positioned to know have already made their call. The plan is a new mid-size crossover, the QX65, which is essentially the 3-row QX60 with a lower roofline, filling the hole left by the old QX55 and calling back to the original FX. And honestly, I've driven the QX60 and it's a nice thing. Quiet, well-trimmed, comfortable. The Dealer Advisory Board chairman expects it to lift volume in the second half. Here's my problem with that, and I'll voice the objection the way an Infiniti guy would put it to me, because I've heard it. This is nonsense, the products are good, they just need models, and the QX65 is the model. Fair. He's right that the products are good, but a brand doesn't recover on a body-style variant of a car it already sells. The QX80 losing 60-odd% in 5 years isn't a styling verdict, it's the used market pricing in a thin lineup, a 2.5 to 1 deficit against its nearest rival, and a parent company in the middle of the largest restructuring in its history. Nissan has announced layoffs affecting around 20,000 people worldwide, roughly 15% of the workforce, and will shut 7 plants by 2027, cutting global capacity from 3.5 million vehicles a year to 2.5 million, and assembly plants from 17 to 10. Luxury sub-brands are not what gets funded first in that meeting. Number 2, Land Rover. If you've been anywhere near a Land Rover showroom this summer, you already know something was off, and you probably didn't know why. In June, JLR issued a voluntary recall and a dealer stop sale on the Range Rover, the Discovery, and the Defender, its 3 most important products. The company confirmed the issue affects the driver's airbag system in certain vehicles manufactured between April 2019 and June 2026, flagged by its own internal engineering testing, and said it wasn't aware of any instances of an airbag failing to deploy. Nobody would say how many vehicles. 7 model years of production, and the count was simply unknown at the time, with unfixed cars on lots unable to be sold. I want to give credit where it's due. Catching your own problem and testing and stopping sales is the right call, and it's more than some companies do. But look at the pattern it lands in. Warranty costs alone ran to roughly $139 million, and earlier in 2026 more than 100,000 Range Rovers were investigated over faulty suspension, and another 170,000 mild hybrid SUVs were recalled over DC-DC converters. JLR recently posted an annual after-tax loss of about $325 million. And the volume behind it is going the wrong way. Retail sales down 15.3% year-on-year in the most recent quarter, to about 80,000 units, after a year in which wholesales fell 43.3% following the 2025 cyber attack that halted production, with North America the worst hit market at minus 37.7%. Here's the part that matters to you rather than to a shareholder. Warranty expense at that scale changes how a company behaves toward you. It shortens goodwill. It makes the service department fight harder over what's covered. It's the difference between a dealer eating a repair on a 4-year-old truck and a dealer quoting you the whole thing. And number 1, Tesla. I told you at the top that this one just had the best quarter in its history, and that's true. Tesla delivered 426 vehicles globally in the second quarter of 2026, up 25% year over year, its best ever second quarter. Records. Champagne. So why is it sitting at number 1 on a list about collapse? Because that record is not happening here? Cox Automotive estimated American deliveries down 20.1% in that same quarter to 114 629 vehicles. Earlier in the year, Tesla's U.S. sales came in at 117,300 for the first quarter, its lowest quarterly total since late 2021, down 8.4%. And this is worth being straight about. Tesla doesn't report U.S. sales figures, so every number in this section is a third-party registration or estimate rather than something the company published. The estimates disagree at the edges. Where they disagree, I've taken the more conservative one, and the direction is the same in all of them. Down, in America, for the 3rd straight year. What makes it an SUV story is what's left. Tesla discontinued the Model S and the Model X, production of both ended in May at Fremont, and the Model Y already accounted for about 67% of Tesla's sales, and roughly 1 in 3 EVs sold in the country. So this is now functionally a one crossover company in the American market. Everything rides on a single SUV. Now the counter-argument, and it's a good one. Tesla is gaining share while everyone else drowns. Also true. American EV sales fell 27% in the first quarter, non-Tesla EV sales fell about 41%, and Tesla's share of the EV market climbed from 43.2 to 54.2%. Winning a shrinking pond is still winning, but go look at what it's costing. Revenue climbed 26% to $28.24 billion, and operating income fell 57% to around $400 million, an operating margin of about 1.4%. Average revenue per vehicle dropped to roughly $42,730 from $45,345, with automotive gross margin at 16.3%. More cars, less money per car, a fraction of the profit. That's not a company selling out of showrooms, that's a company buying volume with price, which is exactly what Buick did to the Envision in reverse, and exactly what puts pressure on the used values of every Model Y already on the road. That's the honest version of number one. Globally, a record. Domestically, 3 years of contraction, a lineup pared down to essentially one SUV, and margin traded away to hold the number. Before the part that'll annoy you, one piece of arithmetic almost nobody runs, and if you've stuck with me this far, you've earned it. When a brand's dealer network shrinks, your ownership costs go up whether or not the price on the window ever changes. Every closed store adds distance to the nearest place that can do warranty work, has the right diagnostic software, and has technicians who've seen your specific fault before. On a mainstream brand with 1,000+ dealers, one closing is nothing. On a network of 299 stores nationwide, when every other mainstream brand has at least 1,000, a closure can add 50 or 80 miles each way, and it does it precisely when the vehicle is old enough to need the shop. Then there's the liquidation. When those stores go, the inventory doesn't evaporate. Some retailers surrendered their franchises and liquidated stock thousands of dollars below invoice to clear their floor plan debt rather than wait out a 3 to 4 month termination. One dealer picked up 14 cars at $7,000 to $8,000 under invoice from a competitor shutting down. Those cars hit the street at fire sale prices, and they set the comparison point for every identical unit in the region, including the one in your driveway. So the discount that pulled you in the door is partly funded by the collapse of your own resale value. Nobody puts that on the sticker. Now, that warranty sentence I promised you. Mitsubishi's headline warranty is a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. It's the brand's best-known selling point. It's genuinely longer than what Toyota, Honda, Ford, or Chevrolet hand you, and salespeople lean on it hard, because if a company will stand behind an engine for 10 years, that must tell you something about the engine. Here's the footnote, straight off Mitsubishi's own warranty page. Coverage applies only to the original owner and is not transferable, and subsequent owners receive the balance of the 5-year, 60,000-mile new vehicle limited warranty. Read that again with your own money in mind. The 10 years is yours, it follows you and only you. The moment you sell that Outlander, the moment its value depends on what a stranger will pay, the 10-year warranty evaporates and the car reverts to $5,000 and $60,000, same as a Camry. Which means the single feature you were sold as proof of longevity does absolutely nothing for you at the exact moment longevity is worth cash. And you can watch that arithmetic close. Buy the same used Mitsubishi as a certified pre-owned unit, and the company reinstates the full 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain coverage from the original in-service date. Same car, same engine, same odometer. The coverage exists or doesn't exist depending on which paperwork it's sold under. Dealers charge roughly $3,600 more for a CPO car, and transferring that warranty involves a $40 fee. So the coverage isn't a mechanical fact about the powertrain, it's inventory. Held back from your buyer, then sold to them separately at a premium on a car you already paid for. Nobody committed fraud here. It's printed, it's legal, it's on the website. That's what makes it worth understanding. It's a sentence somebody wrote to be true and to sound like something else, and it worked on a lot of people for a lot of years. I'd also say this, and I say it because I don't want to be unfair, 5 years and 60,000 miles for a second owner is not nothing. It's what plenty of brands give the first owner. The deception isn't the coverage level, it's the gap between the number in the advertisement and the number that actually attaches to the car, because that gap comes out of your trade-in, not theirs. You know that sentence now, it won't work on you again, and once you've seen it in one place, you'll start finding its cousins everywhere. Lifetime powertrain that ends when you sell, corrosion coverage measured from a date you didn't choose, battery capacity guarantees written around a percentage nobody explains. Which brings me to the thing underneath all of this, and it isn't really about cars. Judgment is a skill. It's learnable, like sharpening a chisel or reading a compression test, and hardly anybody teaches it because there's no money in a customer who can evaluate things for himself. We're trained instead to collect signals. The badge, the 10-year number, the reliability award, the record quarter, and then we treat the signal as the thing. But a signal is only worth what the incentive behind it is worth, and once you learn to ask who chose that number and what it cost them to promise it, the whole world gets easier to read. The old hands in this trade had that skill without a name for it. They'd walk around a car once, look at the tire wear, put a hand on the hood, glance at the service book, and know roughly what they were dealing with. Not magic. Just years of comparing what they were told against what they found. That's all judgment is. Keeping score of the gap between the claim and the reality, long enough that you can smell it coming. You can build that. And the nice thing about learning it on cars is that cars are honest teachers. The thing either starts or it doesn't. So let's turn all of this into something you can actually run. If somebody offers you a big discount on an SUV from a brand on this list, don't decide with your gut. Run 5 checks in this order. 1. Find the fleet mix. Search the brand's most recent quarterly sales report for the retail versus fleet split. If fleet is anywhere near the 60% Mitsubishi hit in the first quarter, understand that a wave of X rental units is coming to compete with your car in 2 years. 2. Look up the 5-year depreciation on that specific model, not the brand. Model matters enormously. A 62.8% 5-year loss on a $70,000 vehicle is a $44,000 problem. The same percentage on a $32,000 crossover is a very different conversation. 3. Count the dealers within your realistic driving range and check whether that count went up or down in the last 3 years. 2 stores becoming 1 is your problem, not theirs. 4. Read the actual warranty page, not the brochure, the footnotes, and answer one question. What does the second owner get? If the headline number doesn't transfer, subtract it from the value of the deal entirely because it will not be there when you sell. 5. Do the arithmetic. Discount minus expected extra depreciation minus the value of any coverage that doesn't transfer. If that comes out positive and the vehicle suits you, buy it with a clear conscience. Some of these are genuinely excellent used buys precisely because the market has given up on them. If it comes out negative, walk, no matter how good the payment looks. And there's the whole point. A collapsing brand is not automatically a bad purchase. It's a mispriced one. Sometimes mispriced in your favor. You just have to be the one doing the pricing. Here's what I do tonight, and it takes about 20 minutes. Go get the warranty document for whatever's in your driveway right now. The real one, the PDF with the footnotes, not the sales page. Find the paragraph about subsequent owners, then look up your model's 5-year depreciation. When you're done, you'll know 2 things you almost certainly didn't know this morning. What your vehicle is actually worth to the next person, and how much of what you were sold was written to stay behind when you leave. Now comments. I want the confessions on this one. What did you buy from a brand that was already sliding, and what did it cost you when you went to sell or trade it? The number, if you've got the stomach for it, what you paid, what you got. Those comments are worth more than anything I can say because they're the actual arithmetic from people who lived it, and somebody reading this weekend is about to sign for the same car. And to the people who are going to tell me I'm wrong about number 1, that a record quarter is a record quarter and I've got this backwards, come on in. Bring the registration data. I'd genuinely rather be corrected than confident. Subscribe if you want the rest of these because there are more. I keep running into a thing I still can't fully explain. Several of these companies are shrinking their American dealer networks while telling investors they're planning growth here, and those 2 statements cannot both be operationally true. I don't have the bottom of it yet. When I do, it'll be here. Look after the one you've got. It's almost always worth more than the one they want to sell you.